guys. We are here today talking to Sangbreeta Moitra. Now, Sangbreeta is, I was going to say a native of Amsterdam, but you're not a native of Amsterdam, but lives in Amsterdam and is here having just spoken for bookings.com. And I would say is a bit of an expert in talking about connection, but equally in transforming presence, potential and purpose in others. Is that correct?
Yes.
Welcome to Future Proof.
Hello. So delighted to be here with the lovely lady right next to me.
So tell us, Sangbreeta, I believe we've never been more human... Sorry, let me start that again. I believe we've never been more technologically connected, yet humanly disconnected. Yeah. And your passion is connection. So talk to us about connection and why it means so much to you.
For me, I think the greatest joy in anything is being around people and sharing experiences and finding how are ways in which we can help and inspire and make each other happy and go home and think, what a wonderful person I met, or oh my goodness, that person made me feel so amazing. And I recently had an experience that I shared with you where I met a CFO of a company, and we were meeting up for a conversation in her office, and it could have been just a very nice, polite, professional conversation like all are. But she was so warm and giving and so respectful, but also a kind of woman who believes in what you believe. And it filled my heart, and I realized that this is what I'm going for, to meet people who make you feel like rock stars and superstars. And in the world of technology, we want to feel that way, but we keep looking at our phones, and let's remove those phones and gadgets and make each other feel that way in person. That's what I love doing, yeah.
So this series is all about future-proofing, and so in order to future-proof, I always like to start with trends, yeah? So what I would love to understand is, what trends are you observing, given you're passionate about connection, in how we connect as human beings, or do not connect?
Trends in connection. I think one of the most important things that... Let me think. I think the most important trend that I am noticing is we are shifting, and I don't know if that's the best positive trend out there, but we're shifting from thinking as a tribal community-esque thinking to a more individualistic thinking. So the trend in connection is about I, me, myself, all about personal brand, my this, my that. It's not about what can we do together? How can we transcend? How can we transform? It's about I, me, myself. And that's a lot to do with our culture as millennials as well. You will notice that where we see people chasing the best paycheck or chasing the best opportunity for themselves, and companies treating people like that, as opposed to let me create a tribe, an environment for you where you feel safe, where you feel like you belong, as opposed to here's your paycheck, do your job and go home. And this is why booking.com, you saw today, at the closing session, they want people to feel like they belong. That doesn't happen often. And I think the trend is, unfortunately, the trend is more individualistic right now, but I think companies are trying to bring back the sense of tribe, the sense of belonging, because otherwise it's not a very profitable or a good future for companies, because everybody will just follow a paycheck or follow their own mindset, then try to do something together and do something that counts for the future.
It's so interesting what you say about people wanting to belong, because one of the things I read recently in Brené Brown's new book, I think it's Braving the Wild, brilliant book if you haven't read it, and she states that the rate of loneliness has more than doubled since the 1980s. Yeah, so we're more connected, but the rate of loneliness has more than doubled. And I think that kind of speaks to what you're saying in terms of us being more individualistic in our connection and more self-centered, which is creating isolation, which then leads to loneliness. And I don't know what you observe, but I know in my work, I observe so many people that feel anxious and overwhelmed. Yeah. And I think so much of that comes back to, as you say, they're chasing a paycheck, and they're also spending so much time on technology that they're feeling lonely and they're trying to deal with stuff on their own, and it kind of compounds everything. So tell us how, or what would you say to someone who wants to get better at connection, for creating, and well, someone who wants to get better at connection in order to create greater happiness in their life? What would you recommend?
I think the most important thing, and this is something I've learned from my workshops at companies, is getting to know the people that you're working with. One of the craziest things I've observed is in my workshops, if I'm asking people to do group exercises, and let's say we're talking about what is the activity that you love to do in your spare time? Or let's say I'm asking you, what is the one childhood lesson you learned that had a profound impact on you? And let's say it's a room full of managers or engineers or investment bankers. These people have worked with each other for the past 10 years or even more. But in those 5 minutes of group interaction, so they could be in teams of 2, 5, 10, whatever, they discover things about each other they never knew, and they've been working 8 hours a day, 10 years. So one turned out to be a champion, what do you say, equestrian rider. So he was a champion horse rider, and his colleagues never knew he's a champion horse rider. Another one plays a guitar in a rock band in his free time. The way people want to make each other feel. One investment banker told me in the group session that I want people to feel that they matter, that they are recognized regardless of what happens. And his team member said, I never knew you thought that way. So we have to stop thinking of each other as robots and as people who provide deliverables, change the focus from transaction to tribe. Get to know each other better, because you don't need to become a new person to achieve your total and full potential and purpose. You just need to unlock certain things within yourself. You need to reach out to people. Reaching out to Penny, I think, has made so much of positive impact and difference in my life. So need to connect with people, find out their strengths and learn from them, as opposed to simply, here's what you need to do. What can I learn from you, and how can we elevate whatever we're doing to a whole different level? Yeah.
I so agree with you. I so agree with you. And connection's just such a powerful thing. I mean, it's the reason I'm in Amsterdam after 2.5 years of working hard to create my own business. It's through connections and building relationships. But, relationships like this, not relationships. Yes, I use technology to connect with people. Yeah. But I think a lot of people hide behind the technology. And, I often think, imagine if we, they have Earth Hour where they turn all the lights off to conserve energy. And what if we had like Human Hour where everyone had to turn every device, or chose to turn all their devices off, and everyone actually had to connect with a stranger in that Human Hour? Like, what would happen?
I do have something to add about that. I think one of the greatest reasons why we rely on technology, and why applications like Tinder and other dating platforms, or even there's an app called Happen, where you're just sitting and if you're turned on that app, like if it's switched on, who's passing you by in 500 or 200 meter radius, and then instead of going and saying hi, you just look at your phone and say, oh, that person just passed me by. But I think, and that stems from hiding or saving yourself from a fear of rejection. Like, what if someone says no? So Tinder works very well because, hey, you said no, well, plenty of fish in the sea, and you just keep swiping. And if there's one thing I can ask your viewers or encourage your viewers is, please embrace rejection and embrace failure, because there are many people who will say no, and that's a part of life. But the few who say yes, they are wonderful, and they're worth failing for, and they're worth being rejected for. One of the beautiful things that Penny told me yesterday is that if she likes someone's profile or someone who inspires her when she hears them in podcasts, she reaches out to them and she said, let's have a talk. No, I'm sure not everyone says yes to you.
No, but the ones that have, it's been the most unbelievable experience, because yes, a lot of people say no, or they ignore you. But I mean, this week I got to meet with Dory Clark. I mean, I've been listening to Dory. This is a thought leader on thought leadership. I've been listening to Dory for, over a year and just totally inspired. I never imagined that I would be in the same city speaking at the same conference with this woman. And then to reach out to her and she said, hey, yeah, let's have coffee. And last night we were like, well, we're here, we've had coffee, why don't we go out for pancakes? And I've been hanging out with her all week and it's like, I didn't even know this was possible. Yeah. And the same, when I went to San Francisco, Jacob Morgan is this amazing number one selling author on the future of work and the top keynote speaker on the topic in the world. And I just contacted him and said, I'm coming to San Francisco. I love what you do. Your podcast's amazing. Can I buy you a coffee? And he said yes. And I'm like, there are two people this year that I have admired from afar that have said yes. Yeah. And I've got to sit down and have two of the most valuable hours, I reckon, in my professional career. It's amazing. Yeah. So what I want to do now is I want to get, I suppose, it's already gotten deep, but let's go a little bit deeper. Okay. Yeah. So you're a bit like me, and you've turned your back on a very successful corporate career in pursuit of the dream, and you've done it very recently. Yeah. How long ago?
It's been 3 months.
Okay. So 3 months. Now, I know, because I've done this, there's a lot of fear that comes with taking a significant risk like that, firstly, but also, you're giving up the security of the success that you had and the ego that goes with that and the paycheck that goes with it. So let's talk a little bit about fear, yeah? So what are the things that you've been most afraid of since you've taken this huge leap of faith?
I can share a moment of weakness with you. And I
love
a moment of weakness. This was January last year, so January 2017. I think it was 10th of Jan. I had applied to speak at different platforms. All of them got rejected, either because A, they told me no, clear no, or number two, they just never got back to me. The discussions I was with other corporates was not working out. And a TEDx speech that I was in talks with a TEDx platform for did not work out because somehow our themes did not align. And at that time, I had nothing planned except for one gig, which was a women's conference in Den Haag in the city of Netherlands. And that day, and it was just one of those days where you just see 20 no's in your email. And this is when I still had my corporate career, but I was it was bubbling. The passion for speaking professionally was bubbling. So in Jan 2017, 15th of Jan, I realized everything that I'm trying for has failed. And I just started crying, and I was not just crying, it was like howling. Because that is the most intense pain that I have ever felt. Because it was a moment of pure, raw, unadulterated fear that maybe this just remains a dream, and maybe I will not end up making this a career. Maybe this desire to talk and give workshops and reach out to people across the world on how they can transform their potential and impact and presence, this is where it ends. And that pain was so severe. The thought that this would end here was so severe that it was one of the worst pains I've ever felt in my heart. Wherever my heart is, it was in my chest. That was a fear. But October 2017, I quit my job.
Yeah, so what happened? How did you get rid of the barrier between, what you wanted and action?
I had to pick up the pieces that were scattered of me and my fear of failure and rejection, and tell myself that, because I realized that despite this fear and despite having to wake up to emails where everyone's saying no, I still wanted to do it. And that is very powerful. It's not every day, and it's not for everything or everyone where you're willing to risk your ego, your self-esteem, your identity, your everything, to keep trying and to still keep dreaming like a fool, even when everything and everyone's saying no. So I didn't give up. And actually, the day after, I kind of had this major pain and crying and think. The next day, I had to go to Den Haag to give that speech, and I did a great job. And there I met other wonderful women, and we got to talking, and it was a good boost of just joy, and knowing that not everything has gone to hell. But After that, slowly things started picking up, and then I ended up winning the TEDx Award. And then I started, because I was always actively looking to talk to people, to learn from them, to connect with them, like that CFO I spoke to you about. Eventually, things started working out, and my TEDx, when I won the TEDx pitch contest, it did a major leap and a major upheaval of my brand. People started noticing me, and then the platforms where I was speaking, even if they were small or workshops or talks for 10, 20 people, they were attended by really influential people. And they loved what I did, and they said, I'm going to bring you to my company. And in a span of 5 months, I went from that moment to being inundated with a storm of work, whether consulting, coaching, speaking, workshops. And by September, I realized I had to make a choice. I was in a situation where my corporate job was picking up. They were giving me more projects, which is, of course, wonderful. But my speaking was picking up. And it was like I was this airplane on a runway that needs to make the choice. Am I going to speed and take off, or am I going to stay in the runway? And the thing is, I know the runway. It's safe. It's stable. I don't know the sky. It's stormy and it's dark. But I still want to take the risk. And so I handed in my resignation in October when I knew that there are people who believe in me, who I know will want to get me to their companies or communities and have me speak. And I took a leap of faith. I saved enough, which is very important, I think. As a female entrepreneur, don't just follow your heart, also make sure you can pay your bills. So I saved enough to see me through 1.5, 2 years, and I quit. Yeah.
Wow. It's a great story. It's funny though, isn't it? Like, I had a very similar experience probably about the first 6 months of leaving my corporate career, where I woke up every night at about 2 a.m. thinking, you've lost the absolute plot. Like, what makes you think that you can pull this off when, you know, you've come from a corporate world and you're doing something that's so foreign? And it went on for like, I reckon like 3 weeks. I just kept waking up every night and I'm like, this is doing my head in. So I'm either going to have to give up and walk away from this dream, like you say, or I'm going to get some help because I just can't sort this out and I can't keep waking up. And I went and did something that I would never normally do, and I went and saw a mindset therapist. Really out there, you know, like, and she did this thing on me, which was, you know, it was like a combination of meditation, Reiki, like all these alternative therapies. And I was like, you know what, I'm open to anything because if it works, fantastic. I don't know what she did in those 2 hours, but I was extremely relaxed and I never woke up again. Yeah, but it's like, and that's the other thing I think I've learned is that I'm so much more open to things now that I would never have been before, and that I don't understand. I'm more curious than I've ever been, and I just find the more open and the more curious I am, the easier it gets to solve your problems.
Curiosity is wonderful.
Oh, I love curiosity, absolutely. And that's part of what I teach. It's like, God, the first thing you want to do if you want to reinvent or future-proof yourself is get curious, learn about things you know nothing about. Especially when they're saying, you know, in the future, basically we're going to have to reskill every 5 years. You're going to have to basically relearn all new stuff. And I can already see that now. So getting comfortable with curiosity and making it part of, you know, your habits, I think is really powerful. I want to say a huge thank you. You have been an absolute delight to get to meet, and thank you so much for sharing your stories and your insights today.
Thank you, Penny. It's been wonderful speaking with you, and not just now, but also, you know, the talks we've had beforehand. And this is the reason why you need to embrace connecting, reaching out, and embracing the fear of rejection, because there are people out there like her who can give you so much positivity and things to think about. It's like a vitamin boost for your mind and for your heart. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.